owns data? Data rights are human rights. Next, we have a session with a focus on UN SDG 16 by GUHESH Ramanathan. Mr. GUHESH Ramanathan is the CEO and Director of Exhibitor Consulting. Over to you for your session, Mr. GUHESH. Who owns data? Data rights are human rights.
Perfect. What I wanted to do today is to just walk you through, this misconception that says that, why is data privacy so important at this point in time? Because a lot of us don't really understand, the seriousness of this particular issue right now, right? Just to give you an idea in terms of the scale at which we work, my name is GUHESH Ramanathan. I'm based in Bangalore in India. And I'm the CEO of this company called Excubator. We work with over 800,000 plus startups across the world, primarily to help them connect to opportunities that come from various large enterprises and potentially with certain investors. And at this point in time, we also track some levels of data as far as these companies are concerned. I'll come to some details about that. Right? But the key thing to remember over here is that, sometime around 2006, is when this concept of data actually being, the new oil as a concept really came out, right? And this came up by a mathematician in the UK, a person called Clive Humby, and he coined this phrase, that data is the new oil. He said that, look, oil-based economies are kind of dying out, and data-based companies, the companies that are actually working on data, are the ones that will potentially be in a position to really scale and control the economy as we go forward, right? So this is one of the things that he really talked about. And he was right. In just the last maybe about 15 years or so, data is now a multi-trillion-dollar global economy. Sorry, not even a global economy, it's a global industry. And like most trillion-dollar industries, it's already being controlled and exploited by many, not few, by many organizations at this point in time, right? This is one of the key things that we need to start wondering. And some of us might actually start saying that, look, how does it matter? Is it really an important thing to worry about? But when I walk you through certain case studies, that's when you'll realize, what's the kind of impact that data, or us as individuals giving out data without understanding what's the level of data that we are giving out, is actually, is it useful to us or not? Use cases as far as data sharing or data is concerned is across multiple industries, right? Whether it is sport, or whether it's retail, whether it's transportation, healthcare, insurance, banking, human resources, even in politics. There's lots of cases where people collect data on various people, right? So for example, in retail, it's perhaps one of the things that's most common to all of us. We know that retailers collect information that says, when did you come to that store? What's your credit card number? What's your phone number? What did you buy? So some of those things are something which people collect. Healthcare, for example, people collect information like, what is your last medical checkup? When was your last medical checkup done? What are the results over there? Various things like that. Some of that data is actually shared with people in insurance, in various other cases. So far, so good. I mean, this is not something that should really concern us at this point in time, okay? The point to remember is this, which is that data by itself is useless. Knowing where you come from, knowing what you bought, knowing how you conducted a certain transaction, whether it was in cash or whether it is by a credit card or whatever, by itself is of no real value. But it's the implication of this, what people can do with the data, which really becomes important, right? More often than not, when this data that you give out to people is used to predict or control or influence your actions, that's when it can become really dangerous, right? And I'll walk you through a situation where this thing has actually happened. Most of you would remember the 2016 American elections, right? And most of you would have read about, the Cambridge Analytica and the Facebook situation, where Facebook actually came out with a very simple app that came out and said that, look, figure out what personality you are. They came up with that particular thing on Facebook. There's a free psychographic measuring tool, and they collected information on various users. Cambridge Analytica actually used that data on millions of people, 87 million people, who were at that point in time undecided on who to vote for, understood their psychographic preferences. So, for example, if someone said that, look, I prefer to work with guns, or I'm a gun supporter, or someone who turned around and said that, look, I am a person who is opposed to immigration of foreigners into the country or something like that, they could very clearly start targeting very specific ads to them. And this is at an individual level, right? Because they understand me as a person, I am now getting very specific content that's based upon what I revealed about myself. I like guns. Hillary Clinton is going to ban guns. If I get that, then I'm going to turn around and say, hey, you know what? I don't think I'm going to vote for Hillary Clinton. If I am anti-immigration, I'd be a person who will turn around and say, look, you know what? Hillary Clinton is going to open up the wall, whereas Trump is the person who's going to build that wall, right? A lot of this is based upon established psychographic principles called OCEAN: openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, neuroticism, agreeableness, and this was used to target sometimes false content to people just to get them to swing from one side of the fence to the other. And you know what the result was? In 2016, Donald Trump won, in spite of the fact that the overall population that voted for Hillary Clinton was perhaps higher than the number that voted for Donald Trump, but because of the swing states where they targeted this particular information, they were very clearly able to turn around and say that, hey, you know what? This is the way in which we will work on this. That's one use case. The other use case is this, which is, I'm again primarily talking about, the US at this point in time. But Edward Snowden is no stranger to us. I mean, at this point in time, he's currently based in Russia. He moved out from the US into Russia. He's now what do you call it? I mean, he sought asylum in Russia, and now he's settled in over there. But he revealed that there were close to 58,000 cases of unlawful surveillance of people by Secret Service agencies, not just in the US alone, but from the US, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, whole bunch of countries is what he came up with. And the way in which this information was actually being used was to say that, look, here are people who are, who are behaving suspiciously, therefore start targeting them. Only 26 of these were revealed that were published by The Guardian in the UK, and then they were forced to stop by the government, right? That's a piece that we're talking about over here, right? Now, let me get down to a very basic thing on how data is typically used, right? So there's a ton of data, as you can see on the left-hand side. There's an algorithm that crunches this particular data and then says, look, how is it that this person is going to behave, predict, and then give you something as an action for, doing something over there, right? So, for example, in retail, you look at, what are all the past purchases that you have made. The algorithm then looks at it and says that, most likely this person is going to buy this particular product, right? If I have a history of buying, say, for example, machine tools or something like that, when I go to that particular site, the algorithm knows that, look, most probably this guy is going to go and buy some other machine tool which he doesn't have. And therefore, it gives me an action that says, if you buy it today, we'll deliver it early, or we'll give you a discount or something. This is the way in which typically a prediction and a call to action is actually given over there. So this is fine so far, once again. But when demographic data and psychographic data is actually being used, it can lead to a prediction that says, this is how he is likely to behave. And that action could potentially lead to, so for example, there are bits and pieces of data that shows that Black Americans are more likely to behave in a particular way, and therefore it can lead to action by the police that says arrest this person, or by HR that says fire this person. Those are some of the things that typically happen over here, right? Why does this thing happen? Sometimes it's because of wrong data sets that are being used. Sometimes it's because the algorithm is not trained adequately or changed over time, which is important to do over here. But unfortunately, most of the time, this does not happen. What can we do about it is a thing over here, right? I'm going to walk you through a series of steps very quickly that says, and I'm asking you, to mentally ask yourself, saying, when is it that you draw the line over here, right? An online retailer that you regularly go to, is asking for some information about you. Give me your name, give me your email address, credit card, past purchases is something that we are tracking at this point in time, right? Would you draw the line and say, no, I'm not going to reveal this information? More often than not, we do not, right? We now go to the next step that says that the retailer is now sending promotional email and messages on items that they think will be of interest to you. Like I gave the example of, I have, bought machine tools before. Therefore, they're saying, hey, did you know that this particular machine tool is now available at, a much lower price, or, whatever, some of those things. More often than not, we will not draw the line over there also. Okay. Now you start getting information on items that are popular in your neighborhood. In this particular area, mostly people are buying these kind of things. Would you draw the line at that particular stage? You have shared your address with them, right? Because they need it for shipping. Would you draw the line over there and say, no, this has gone too far? More often than not, we will not do that, right? Now, interestingly, your neighbor, the same profile as you, he ends up getting a credit card upgrade offer from the same issuer, so same bank or the same credit card issuing company as you, but with a higher limit. Okay, you don't know why. Most probably it's because he's got a better credit history. More often than not, it's perhaps because he's been spending more on the credit card, right? So something like that. Would you draw the line at this stage? Now you turn around and say that, look, your neighbor has got a higher credit card limit. Let me see if I can, write to the same guy and get me a higher limit. Okay. To your surprise, it's turned down. Why? Because like I said, perhaps you've been spending less. And the card company now decides saying that, you know what, I don't want to spend too much time with this person because he or she is a low value customer for me. I'd rather focus upon, this guy's neighbor who's perhaps a higher value customer for them, right? Your credit card score is good. Your credit worthiness score is good. Okay. Your credit card issuer has still issued you. You go to another credit card issuer, regretfully declined once again. Will you draw the line at this stage? Because at this point in time, you are now being discriminated against. And this is what most people realize too late. That says, is this the time when you draw the line and say that, look, I'm not going to go to this particular online store or this particular, place where I've been sharing data. This is an example of retail, but if you apply it to literally any other use case, for example, in HR, you could see the potential for discrimination over here. You could see on social media, when you share information, you could see potential for discrimination, right? That's what you're talking about. How do you actually determine what you can do about this is what I really want to spend a little bit of time on, right? There are two steps in this. One is, try and evaluate the what I call the opacity of the algorithm itself that is used. Are you able to figure out from the algorithm that is being used that says, you know what, I don't think they're getting too much data from this. Be very, very careful about this because sometimes the algorithm is completely non-transparent to you at all. You will not be able to figure it out. So the second state to look at is, what is the potential of the scale of the impact that sharing that data can have. For example, sharing information that says you live in a very specific place could have disastrous implications in terms of various things over there, right? So, and when it's extended across a large population, that's when you'll realize that the scale of that impact can be huge. And that's what the second problem is. The third one that you look at is, check for the potential to damage at scale. That's the third thing that you would look for. Once you have understood this, then you can determine saying that, look, should I share this data with people at all or not? So for example, as a simple example, even on the sites that I visit very regularly for buying items, I do not give them the permission to store my credit card number. I'm happy to go ahead and type that number in all over again. I give them the address. I say, yeah, keep the address because I don't feel like typing out, 15 lines every time I go in over there. I say, save my name, but I'm not going to give you my credit card number. I will use that and I'm not giving you the permission to store my credit card number, right? That's where I looked at it from this particular perspective, right? That's when you will start determining which is the data that you are willing to share. What is the data that you are willing to share? What are you going to get back in return? For example, by sharing my address, I'm saying, yeah, I will be able to get my, I will be able to spend less time on the site, and I don't need to keep typing in my address again and again and again, right? So as simple as that. That's one of the things over there. That's how you determine where you will draw the line. Do that for every piece of data that you share, including your photographs, including your address, including your full name, your year of birth, whatever that you want to do. Year of birth is again a very scary one, right? In many cases, older folks are not able to get the kind of job offers that they want, primarily because of their age, right? So I can walk you through some of those use cases also. But for data privacy to really work, these are the 7 things that you should really start looking at, right? One is, the critical piece over here is, just 1 second, is, is it technology agnostic to the extent that, for example, irrespective of the technology that is being used, your data should be completely holistic, should be completely, non-transparent to most of the people that you're talking about. Application should be holistic. It should be applicable to every individual person, right? Who's contributing that piece of data over there. It should be informed consent. You should be told, saying that, look, I'm giving this particular information to you, and this is how this data is going to be used, right? In many cases, for example, when you go to a retail store, again, I'm using retail as an example because more often than not, that's one of the most common cases that we really work with, right? So someone asks you, saying that, look, give me a rating of how this person, how you like this purchase. Or for example, when you travel by, say, an Uber or any one of the other vehicles providers who are there, you'll give some information that says, how do you rate this person? All right. Check and see if that is going to be used to reward or punish that person. In many cases, it's punish. So sometimes I do not even give feedback on that person, primarily because I say that, look, if it's good feedback, I give them good feedback. But if it's bad feedback, I never give them that bad feedback on that driver, because I say that, look, it could potentially lead to a distressing situation for that driver, right? Minimal data is what should be needed. The person who controls that data should be accountable for this. The second part, the sixth part, is that there should be structured enforcement of this particular thing that says that, look, is that data sharing actually being enforced or not, or the data privacy is actually being enforced or not. Finally, I feel that there should be deterrent penalties wherever situations like this are exposed to light. With that, I'm going to stop over here. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you so much, Mr. Guhesh, for that wonderful session. I think you're doing an amazing job by working with startups across the globe. And as you rightly said, we are not aware that we are being exploited by the companies using our data. I'm sure our listeners will start thinking about this, whatever they do after the session. Looking forward to more interactions with you. Thank you so much.